You know, in the world of information technology, pretty much every decision you make, from how you handle data to how you deal with a vendor, it's like you're walking an ethical tightrope. One little misstep can have huge consequences, not just for your company, but for, well, everyone. So the big question is, how do we walk that rope without falling? Let's get into it. And look, this isn't just some abstract theoretical stuff. This is a real quote about the Takata airbag scandal. You had an engineer who saw a deadly flaw, a design choice that was all about profit, and it was putting people's lives at risk. He tried to sound the alarm, but nobody listened. And the result? At least 10 people dead, over 100 injuries, and a global recall of epic proportions. That's the real weight of ethics in our world. It can literally be a matter of life and death. So that really brings the question right back to you, doesn't it? When you're out there in the professional world, where exactly do you draw the line? What about a small gift from a supplier? Or using some unlicensed software just to hit a crazy deadline? What about staying quiet when you see some shady accounting? We all face these kinds of tests. So today, we're going to unpack the ethical framework that can help guide us through these really tough calls. All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to start from the inside and work our way out. First up, your core duties to your employer. Then, we'll dive into the tricky world of clients and vendors. After that, we'll zoom out and look at the standards for the entire profession. And finally, we'll talk about the responsibilities that all of us share, just as everyday users of technology. Okay, first up, where does this whole ethical journey even start? Well, it starts right at home base, with our fundamental duty to our own organization. This is all about protecting the company from the inside. Here's the thing you've got to get. IT workers aren't just staff, you're guardians. You literally hold the keys to the kingdom, a company's most critical assets, its data, its systems, its intellectual property. Being a steward of that is a massive part of the job. And one of the most important things you're tasked with protecting? The company's trade secrets. So what exactly is a trade secret? I mean, we're not just talking about any old secret here. This is specific information, like a client list, a special manufacturing process, or a secret recipe that gives a company its competitive edge because nobody else knows it. And here's the kicker: the company has to be actively trying to keep it a secret for it to legally count. And believe me, the consequences for messing this up are, well, they're no joke. Take the lawsuit between Zillow and Move. An executive allegedly nabbed thousands of confidential documents right before jumping ship to a competitor. The outcome wasn't just a slap on the wrist, it was a staggering $130 million settlement. That is the real-world price tag for betraying that kind of trust. Okay, so protecting the big picture stuff is huge, but your duty doesn't stop there. It actually trickles all the way down to the tools you're using every single day. And that brings us to one of the most common ethical tripwires there is: software piracy. I mean, just look at this number. The Business Software Alliance looked into over 15,000 reports of piracy in just 1 year. And get this, where do you think most of those tips come from? You guessed it, disgruntled employees or ex-employees who know exactly where all the bodies are buried. It is a huge risk that is just not worth taking. All right, so we've covered our duties inside the company. Now let's step outside the building and talk about the ethical challenges that pop up when you're dealing with clients, suppliers, and, well, the law. Okay, this is a classic ethical minefield, right? The line between a bribe and a gift. And really, it all comes down to intent. A bribe is all about secrecy. It's designed to corrupt a decision and get you an unfair advantage. A gift, on the other hand, is just a small token of appreciation, given out in the open with absolutely no strings attached. Knowing the difference is beyond critical, especially when you're working with people from different cultures. And listen, this isn't just some suggestion from HR. This is federal law. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the FCPA, makes it an actual crime for any U.S. company or citizen to bribe foreign officials. And the penalties are no joke. We're talking fines up to $2 million for the company, and actual prison time for individuals. So, want to see how this works in the real world? Let's break down this case with the software giant SAP. Step 1. They sold software to a partner at a ridiculous discount. We're talking over 80% off. Step 2. That partner turns around and sells it to the Panamanian government for a much higher price. And step 3, the massive difference between those two prices, that became a slush fund to pay illegal kickbacks to government officials. It just goes to show how something that looks like a discount can actually be a machine for corruption. All right, so we've talked about your employer, we've talked about clients and vendors. Let's zoom out even more to your responsibility to the entire IT profession and honestly, to society as a whole. And that brings us to a really tough topic, whistleblowing. This is when an employee sees something that's just deeply wrong, something illegal, negligent, or just plain dangerous, and they decide that their ethical duty is to expose it, even if it means taking a huge personal risk. It's really about putting the public interest above your loyalty to the company or even your own career. And don't think for a second this is just something that happened in the past. In a pretty recent lawsuit, a former senior manager at Oracle claims she was pressured to cook the books, basically, to make clout revenue look better than it was. She alleged that when she refused to go along with it, they fired her. It just shows the incredible pressure and career risk that whistleblowers can face. So, when you're in one of these impossible situations, where do you even turn? Well, think of these professional organizations as your North Star. Groups like the ACM and the IEEE Computer Society, they've created these established codes of ethics that give all of us in the profession a shared set of principles. They create a baseline for how to act responsibly and help you make the right call when the answer is anything but obvious. And following these codes, it's not just about, being a good person. It's about protecting yourself legally. As professionals, we all have what's called a duty of care. It's a legal obligation not to cause unreasonable harm through our own negligence. If you fail to meet that standard, say you're a software engineer who knowingly releases a dangerously buggy product, you could be facing a lawsuit for professional malpractice. Okay, but is all this ethical stuff just for the tech pros? Absolutely not. For this last part, we're flipping the script because creating an ethical IT environment is a shared responsibility. It extends to every single person who logs into a computer at a company. For the average user, the ethical challenges might seem smaller, but they're just as important. I mean, we're talking about the everyday stuff, right? Things like installing software on your work computer that you're not supposed to have, or using company computers to run your side hustle, or even just carelessly sharing sensitive customer info. Each one of those little acts can create massive security and legal headaches for the entire organization. So, how does a company even begin to manage all this? The answer is an acceptable use policy, or AOUP. Just think about it. Without one, you've got pure chaos. Nobody knows the rules, which leads to security breaches and legal trouble. But with a really clear AOU, you get clarity. Everyone knows the score, which protects the employee and the company. It's a win-win. And that AUP, it isn't just some document you sign and forget. It has teeth, and those teeth are the corporate firewall. It's the digital gatekeeper, right? It sits there inspecting all the traffic coming in and out, and it's the first line of defense that actually enforces the rules in the AOP, like blocking dangerous websites or preventing sketchy access. It is the technical backbone of an ethical workplace. All right, let's bring it all home. What are the big things you need to remember? First, you are a steward of your company's most valuable assets. Treat them that way. Second, know the bright line between a gift and a bribe, and know the law. Third, use those professional codes as your compass and find the courage to speak up when something's wrong. And finally, remember that creating an ethical culture is everyone's job, and it starts with clear policies like an AUP. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. With AI, machine learning, and everything else changing at lightning speed, are the codes of ethics we have right now really enough? Or are we going to need a whole new, more flexible framework to help us walk the even crazier digital tightrope of tomorrow? That's definitely something for all of us to think about.